Hi, boys and girls. It's Mr. Yates and Miss Garcia, and today we're going to be explaining about the History Chapter 13 question of the day. What we want to do is we want to break down what the question means. We also want to give you an idea of your focus, what you want to focus in on this question, and then some examples of good ways and not so good ways to answer the question. So we're going to start with basically the question. Our question is, why would white settlers fear the combined talents of, and these are a little tricky names, so I'm going to say them slowly, Tecumseh and Tenskwatawa. Those are two Native American leaders that you're going to read about in chapter 13, and they had a lot of skills. And those skills, those talents, those things that they could do were things that the white settlers who were starting to invade their land should have been afraid of. That they were like doing things or being able to do things that the white settlers who were coming to those lands should probably be afraid that maybe these are people they shouldn't fight, but maybe should go back to their own side of the mountains and leave Tecumseh and Tenskwatawa's people alone. In order to do that, you're going to have to read the chapter, and you're going to look for evidence of some of the talents that Tecumseh and Tenskwatawa had, and kind of see what things you would say that they were able to do that the white settlers should have been afraid of, or should really have respected as like, oh, we shouldn't mess with these people because they have some skills. Now, our focus when we do that is we're going to be looking at finding evidence in the text, and we want to explain that evidence, and that is our next focus. And that's our focus for today, is we're going to use ideas to explain our evidence. Now, we don't have to highlight. I think ideas usually in the past has been blue, so maybe I should probably just highlight. So explain our evidence. We're going to be using our explain our evidence in blue. You don't have to do that, boys and girls, when you're actually doing this and typing it in forms, because I can't let you do that. But we want to really focus on making sure that our explanations make sense, that we find evidence, and then we explain how it shows that white settlers should fear those talents. Let's go ahead and look at two examples. I'm going to read them to you. And then Ms. Garcia is going to break down, Mr. Yates put together two examples, and we're going to see what you and Ms. Garcia think are probably the good example and the not so good example of using evidence to explain your idea. So I'm going to go through it, and then after I'm done explaining it, Ms. Garcia will kind of tell me the truth about which one's a good example and which one's not a good example. So we're going to go ahead and look at the very first one right here, which is the very beginning. It says, one example is on page 70, because when I was reading the text, I was going over to page 70, and I'm just going to go where I was reading it. Oh, yeah. Now, I noticed in page 70 some really interesting evidence that I wanted to highlight here, or just draw a line underneath, is that, let's see, what was it? Tecumseh and Tenskwatawa were told the Indians to stop drinking the white man's liquor, and it made them weak. And the tribesmen stopped, and they told them to go back to Indian ways and to be proud of their heritage. And the Indians did that too. So what I did is I decided over here when I was typing is I would say, well, on page 70, which is where I found this evidence, the author says that Tecumseh and Tenskwatawa told the Indians to stop drinking the white man's liquor and be proud of their heritage. And they did it. Now, that's my evidence, but then the next thing I did is I went ahead and explained why I think that that was showing the white settlers should fear the combined talents of Tecumseh and Tenskwatawa. I said this means that the white settlers would fear them because they could convince the Indians to do things that would help them be strong and powerful against the white settlers. And that's my first example. Now, on my second example, I wanted to find, because you want to find more than one piece of evidence. So I found, and I was looking around, I noticed up here on my text, and I'm going to just go ahead and look up here, and I noticed that, well, I noticed something about him being muscular, Tecumseh, which is the same name. As you read this chapter, you'll notice that Tecumseh and Tecumseh are the same person. Tecumseh is the way that the author sometimes pronounces the name. Tecumseh is the way that the question of the day is actually. So Tecumseh and Tecumseh are the same person. So I noticed that Tecumseh was muscular and well-built, and his face was so handsome that men and women remarked about it. So what I'm going to say is that, well, another example is on page 70 when the author stated that Tecumseh was handsome. This means that the white settlers should fear him because he was good looking. Ms. Garcia, tell it to me straight. Which one's a better example of explaining my evidence, and why do you think so?
I believe that the first example would definitely be, without a doubt, hands down, better example than the second one. Because if you look at it, you gave evidence that helps answer the question. So you went through and you found a good piece of evidence. Then you went on to further explain your evidence, which is what we really want to focus on doing using the biceps rubric. In the second paragraph, you said this means the white settlers would fear them because they could convince the Indians to do things that would help them be strong and powerful against the white settlers. Those ideas help explain how that evidence answers the question. So that was a really good job of doing that. You also included your proof in that, where you found it, as to like on page 70. So you definitely included those biceps aspects and different things in the rubric. So that one is really well stated. Had all three components that we are really, really looking for, because boys and girls, as we're, looking at your guys' questions of the day, we really are seeing that, some of you guys might be struggling with this. So I think that this is a really good example for you guys to look at, and it has those key components. Because if we look at the second example,
I was going to ask you, because go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Did you want to add something?
No, go ahead. I was going to say, what about the second example? I've got evidence, I've got explained it, and I've got proof. So why isn't it good?
All right. Well, so you're right. You did include your proof, which you said on page 70, which excellent job with that. Then you went on to say, when the author stated that, all right, Tecumseh was handsome. Now that, I'm going to say, was your evidence, but that evidence doesn't necessarily answer our question, and it's not the best piece of evidence that you could have found in the chapter.
Okay.
It doesn't quite tell us why they should fear them. And then you did go on to explain, this means that the white settler should fear him because he was good looking. Those ideas don't necessarily explain how to really further explain that evidence, and how that evidence shows that that's a reason why they should fear them. That just kind of restates what the evidence was, instead of further explaining it in detail.
I see. So first of all, even though I got proof and the evidence was in the text, the evidence that I found that he was handsome doesn't really, well, I can't really sell it. I doesn't really convince anybody that that's something that white settlers should fear. And when I tried to explain it and said that they should fear him because he was good looking, all I was doing was restating the evidence. I wasn't really adding any ideas to it. So, all right, well, thank you for doing that, Ms. Garcia. That kind of helps me, and hopefully, boys and girls, will help you when you're answering this question of the day, to find evidence that actually answers the question, and also you can explain it to help support your answer. So if you do have questions about this while you're reading this, boys and girls, today, I'd like you to make sure that you email Mr. Yates or Ms. Garcia, and we can help you walk you through it. And we are going to have the text posted, and we are also going to I'm going to read this out loud so you can listen to it, help you a little bit with the pronunciations, but please email us if you have any questions. Thanks, boys and girls. Bye-bye.